Life for gang-affiliated inmates at Pelican Bay State Prison has been marked by extreme isolation, rigid control, and systemic efforts to dismantle prison gang influence. Established in 1989 in Northern California, PBSP was designed to house the state's most dangerous and influential inmates, many of whom were leaders of organized prison gangs such as the Aryan Brotherhood, Mexican Mafia, Nuestra Familia, and Black Guerrilla Family. Central to PBSP's strategy was the Security Housing Unit, SHU, a supermax facility within the prison. Inmates suspected of gang affiliation were often placed in the SHU under indeterminate terms, meaning they could be held indefinitely without a fixed release date. These inmates were confined to 8 by 10-foot windowless cells for 22 to 23 hours a day, with minimal human contact and limited access to programs or rehabilitation opportunities. Meals were delivered through a slot in the door, and exercise was typically limited to a small enclosed yard. This environment was intended to disrupt gang communication and leadership structures. Inmates could be placed in the SHU through a process called gang validation, which relied on evidence such as tattoos, artwork, or confidential informant testimony. Once validated, inmates had limited options for release: serve the indeterminate term or debrief by providing information about gang activities. Debriefing was controversial, as it often placed inmates at risk of retaliation and raised concerns about the reliability of the information provided. The harsh conditions and indefinite confinement led to widespread protests. In 2011, and again in 2013, thousands of inmates across California participated in hunger strikes initiated by PBSP inmates to protest the use of long-term solitary confinement and the debriefing policy. These strikes garnered national attention and led to legal challenges against the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, CDCR. In 2015, a landmark settlement in the case of Ashker versus Governor of California resulted in significant reforms. The agreement ended the practice of indefinite solitary confinement and established new criteria for SHU placement, focusing on inmates' behavior rather than gang affiliation alone. Following the settlement, many inmates were released from the SHU into the general population. While this transition offered improved living conditions, it also presented challenges. Inmates had to adjust to increased social interaction and navigate complex dynamics with other gang-affiliated individuals. Some inmates who had spent decades in isolation reported difficulties adapting to the new environment. Despite reforms, managing gang activity within PBSP remains a complex issue. While the SHU's role has diminished, the prison continues to house many gang-affiliated inmates, and tensions can still lead to violence. Efforts to provide rehabilitation and reintegration programs are ongoing, but the legacy of the SHU era continues to influence the prison's culture and operations. In summary, life for gang members at Pelican Bay State Prison has evolved from extreme isolation in the SHU to a more integrated, yet still challenging existence within the general population. While significant reforms have improved conditions, the prison continues to grapple with the complexities of managing gang-affiliated inmates in a high-security environment. Pelican Bay State Prison, established in 1989 to house California's most dangerous inmates, the prison has been the site of numerous gruesome massacres and violent episodes. Below is an overview of some of the most harrowing incidents in the prison's history. Number 10. The Murder of Watson White, 1992. In August 1992, Pelican Bay State Prison in California became the scene of a harrowing incident when inmate Watson White was fatally stabbed. White, who was serving a sentence for first-degree murder, robbery, and kidnapping, was attacked by fellow inmate Cedric Davis. The assault was not a spontaneous act of violence, but was allegedly orchestrated by correctional officer Michael Powers. According to federal indictments, Powers, along with fellow guard Jose Garcia, engaged in a conspiracy between July 1992 and August 1996 to have certain inmates beaten or stabbed by others. They targeted prisoners they deemed undesirable, such as convicted child molesters, rapists, or those who refused to cooperate with them. In exchange for carrying out these attacks, the guards offered other inmates incentives, like alcohol and special privileges. In White's case, Davis was allegedly solicited by Powers to carry out the fatal stabbing. The incident highlighted a disturbing culture within the prison, where some guards abused their authority to manipulate inmates into committing acts of violence against each other. The assassination of Watson White was a pivotal event that led to increased scrutiny of Pelican Bay State Prison's practices. It underscored the need for systemic reforms to address the abuse of power by correctional officers and to ensure the safety and rights of all inmates. Number 9. The death of William Stanton Boyd. In 1998, Pelican Bay State Prison in California became the focus of a federal civil rights investigation following a series of inmate deaths under suspicious circumstances. One particularly notable case was the death of inmate William Stanton Boyd, which raised serious concerns about potential staff involvement in orchestrating inmate violence. William Stanton Boyd, 36, was fatally stabbed in early 1998. Boyd had previously testified against prison guard Jose Garcia, who was later convicted of conspiring to assault certain inmates at Pelican Bay. Boyd's cooperation with authorities made him a potential target for retaliation. His death occurred amidst allegations that prison staff may have facilitated or encouraged inmate-on-inmate violence. The FBI's investigation into Pelican Bay aimed to determine whether guards had instigated fights between rival inmates, possibly as a means of controlling the prison population or punishing specific individuals. This probe was part of a broader examination of California's prison system, which included investigations into other facilities like High Desert State Prison. The death of William Stanton Boyd highlighted the complex and often dangerous dynamics within high-security prisons, where the lines between inmate violence and staff misconduct can become blurred. The federal investigation sought to uncover the extent of any wrongdoing and to ensure that the rights and safety of inmates were being upheld. This case underscored the importance of transparency and accountability within correctional institutions, prompting calls for reforms to prevent similar incidents in the future. Number 8. The homicide of Felipe Cruz in 1997. On November 1, 1997, Felipe Cruz, a 26-year-old inmate at Pelican Bay State Prison in California, was found unconscious in his security housing unit, SHU cell. Cruz was serving a 17 years to life sentence for second-degree murder from Los Angeles County. He was transported to a local hospital where he was pronounced dead. Prison officials reported that Cruz had been strangled by his cellmate, James Elrod, a 29-year-old serving a 29 years to life sentence for murder from Kern County. Cruz's death was the fifth inmate-on-inmate executing in the SHU over a 21-month period, all involving cellmates and occurring within the confines of the high-security unit. Despite the alarming pattern, prison officials stated there were no plans to re-examine the practice of double-celling inmates in the SHU, asserting that there was no evidence linking the slayings. Further investigations revealed that Elrod was associated with the Aryan Brotherhood, a white supremacist prison gang, and that Cruz's murder was allegedly carried out as a favor to the Mexican Mafia, a rival prison gang. This connection highlighted the complex and dangerous interplay between prison gangs within Pelican Bay. The series of inmate deaths, including Cruz's, drew criticism from legal authorities and raised concerns about the prison's management. A Crescent City prosecutor described the situation as a reign of terror linked to white supremacist gangs and suggested that a federal grand jury might be necessary to investigate the prison's operations. The incidents underscored the challenges in managing high-risk inmates and the potential consequences of housing dangerous individuals together without adequate safeguards. Cruz's massacre, along with the other inmate-on-inmate assassinations, prompted discussions about the need for systemic reforms within Pelican Bay State Prison to address the underlying issues contributing to such violence. Number 7. The Murder of Walter Holt by Joseph Danks. On September 21, 1990, Joseph Danks, a convicted serial killer known as the Koreatown Slasher, murdered his 67-year-old cellmate, Walter Holt, at the California Correctional Institution in Tehachapi. Danks had been serving a 156 years to a life sentence for the 1987 murders of 6 homeless men in Los Angeles' Koreatown. Just hours after being placed in the same cell as Holt, Danks strangled him using a ligature fashioned from a bedsheet. He later confessed to the killing, stating that he had decided to murder Holt as soon as they were housed together. Danks exhibited a history of violent behavior and mental health issues. Prior to Holt's murder, he had been diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia and antisocial personality disorder. While awaiting trial for Holt's murder, Danks continued to display aggressive behavior, including assaulting a correctional officer and attacking his own defense attorney during court proceedings. In 1993, Danks pleaded guilty to the first-degree murder of Walter Holt and was sentenced to death. During sentencing, he expressed no remorse, claiming he was doing God's work and threatening both the judge and the jury. Danks' case underscores the challenges of managing inmates with severe mental health issues and violent tendencies within the prison system. His actions raised concerns about inmate safety and the protocols for housing prisoners, particularly those with known histories of violence. Number 6. The death of Fabian Rodriguez in 2019. On October 31, 2019, Fabian Rodriguez, a 35-year-old inmate at Pelican Bay State Prison in Crescent City, California, was fatally assaulted by 2 fellow inmates, Fernando Hernandez and Juan Ayabar. The attack occurred around 6:50 p.m. in Facility A, a general population housing unit within the prison. Correctional officers discovered an inmate-manufactured weapon at the scene. Rodriguez was transported to a local hospital where he was pronounced dead at 7:48 p.m. Rodriguez had been incarcerated since June 9, 2006, serving a 12-year sentence for second-degree robbery with firearm and street gang enhancements from Los Angeles County. At the time of his death, he was nearing the end of his sentence. The assailants, Hernandez and Ayabar, were also from Los Angeles County and had been housed at Pelican Bay since 2008. Hernandez, 31, was serving a life sentence with the possibility of parole for first-degree attempted homicide, while Ayabar, 33, was serving a life sentence without the possibility of parole for first-degree murder. Following the incident, both Hernandez and Ayabar were placed in segregated housing. Inmate movement within Facility A was restricted to facilitate the investigation conducted by the prison's Investigative Services Unit, with assistance from the Del Norte County District Attorney's Office. The motive behind the attack was not publicly disclosed. However, the incident underscored ongoing concerns about inmate safety and the challenges of managing gang-affiliated individuals within the prison system. Pelican Bay State Prison, known for housing some of California's most dangerous inmates, has a history of inmate-on-inmate violence, often linked to gang rivalries and affiliations. Rodriguez's death prompted discussions about prison safety protocols, particularly regarding the housing of inmates with known gang affiliations and violent histories. The incident also highlighted the need for continued vigilance and reform to prevent such tragedies within the correctional system. Number 4. The assassination of Uriel Otero in 2022. On July 29, 2022, the Pelican Bay State Prison became the site of a fatal inmate-on-inmate assault. At approximately 5:33 p.m., Correctional officers and medical staff responded to an incident in a housing unit day room where inmate Fernando Torres Lopez allegedly attacked fellow inmate Uriel Otero. Otero was transported to the prison's triage and treatment area, but was pronounced dead at 6:20 p.m. The California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation is investigating the incident as a homicide. Torres Lopez, 23, was sentenced on August 16, 2021, in Santa Clara County to serve a 19-year, 8-month sentence for attempted second-degree murder, carrying a firearm in public with a prior felony conviction, and 2 counts of assault with a deadly weapon in the commission of a street gang act. Otero, 22, was sentenced on July 8, 2021, in Monterey County to serve 25 years for attempted second-degree murder with use of a firearm and inflicting great bodily injury in the commission of a street gang act. Following the incident, Torres Lopez was placed in segregated housing pending the outcome of the investigation. To facilitate the investigation, officials limited population movement on the yard. The prison's investigative services unit, the Del Norte County District Attorney's Office, and the Del Norte County Coroner are conducting the investigation. The motive behind the attack has not been disclosed. However, both inmates had histories of violent offenses associated with street gang activities which may have contributed to the incident. This event was the 3rd inmate homicide in a California state prison within a week, raising concerns about inmate safety and prison violence. Pelican Bay State Prison, opened in 1989, houses approximately 1,658 inmates of varying custody levels, including some of the state's most dangerous offenders. The facility has a history of gang-related violence, and this incident underscores the ongoing challenges in managing such populations and ensuring the safety of inmates and staff alike. Number 3. The murder of Michael R. Shalinire in 2024. On April 21, 2024, the Pelican Bay State Prison became the scene of a fatal inmate-on-inmate assault, resulting in the death of 36-year-old inmate Michael R. Shalinire. The incident occurred during evening day room activities when Shalinire and fellow inmate Joseph A. Quintero engaged in a physical altercation. Correctional officers quickly responded and discovered that Shalinire had sustained multiple puncture wounds. Despite immediate medical attention and transportation to an external medical facility, Shalinire was pronounced dead at approximately 7:47 p.m. Shalinire had been incarcerated since July 9, 2009, serving a 21-year sentence for voluntary manslaughter with an enhancement for a street gang act in the commission of a violent felony. During his incarceration, he received additional sentences for in-prison offenses, including battery on a non-incarcerated person in 2016 and assault by an incarcerated person with a deadly weapon in 2019. Following the altercation, prison staff conducted a search of the area and discovered an inmate-manufactured weapon near a cell occupied by inmates Oscar Monsibais and Omar Arzate. In addition to Quintero, inmates Michael Jones, Monsibais, and Arzate were placed in restricted housing pending the outcome of the investigation. All individuals involved were serving sentences for serious offenses. Quintero was serving a life sentence for first-degree murder. Jones had previous convictions for robbery. Monsibais was serving time for assault with a deadly weapon and robbery, along with multiple parole violations. And Arzate was serving a 29-year sentence for assault with a machine gun and kidnapping. The California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation initiated a homicide investigation, with PBSP's Investigative Services Unit and the Del Norte County District Attorney's Office leading the inquiry. The Office of the Inspector General was notified, and the Del Norte County Coroner is responsible for determining Shalinire's official cause of death. This incident underscores ongoing concerns about inmate safety and the management of high-risk individuals within California's prison system. It also highlights the challenges faced by correctional institutions in preventing violence among incarcerated populations. Number 2. The slayings of the late 1990s. In the late 1990s, Pelican Bay State Prison in Crescent City, California, experienced a disturbing series of inmate-on-inmate homicides within its Security Housing Unit, SHU, a facility designed to house some of the state's most dangerous offenders. Between February 1996 and late 1997, 8 inmates were killed by their cellmates, a pattern that came to be known as the slayings. Most victims were strangled. One was beaten to death. These killings raised serious concerns about prison management, particularly the practice of double-celling inmates in the SHU. Despite efforts to pair compatible cellmates, the system failed to prevent these deadly encounters. Notably, several victims and perpetrators were affiliated with prison gangs, including the Aryan Brotherhood. For instance, on November 1, 1997, Felipe Cruz was found unconscious in his SHU cell and later pronounced dead. His cellmate, James Elrod, was implicated in the murder. The situation prompted criticism from legal authorities. A Crescent City prosecutor described the events as a reign of terror linked to white supremacist gangs and suggested that a federal grand jury might be necessary to investigate the prison's operations. Further investigations revealed that some prison staff may have played a role in facilitating these assaults. In 2002, former guards Michael Powers and Jose Garcia were convicted of conspiring to arrange beatings and stabbings of inmates, including the fatal stabbing of inmate Watson White in 1992. The guards targeted inmates they deemed undesirable, such as convicted child molesters, and enlisted other inmates to carry out the attacks. The slayings underscored systemic issues within Pelican Bay State Prison, including inadequate oversight, flawed inmate housing practices, and the potential complicity of staff in inmate violence. These events highlighted the need for comprehensive reforms to ensure the safety and rights of all individuals within the correctional system. Number 1. The 2001 Race Riot, a deadly clash between gang members. In the early 2000s, Pelican Bay State Prison in Crescent City, California, experienced a series of violent incidents rooted in racial tensions among inmates. One of the most significant events occurred on February 23, 2000, when a riot involving approximately 200 Black and Latino inmates erupted in the prison's B facility exercise yard. The altercation, which began around 9:30 a.m., escalated rapidly as inmates armed with homemade weapons engaged in brutal combat. Despite initial attempts by correctional officers to quell the violence using tear gas, pepper spray, and non-lethal munitions, the situation intensified, leading officers to employ lethal force. In total, 24 rounds were fired from Mini 14 semi-automatic rifles, resulting in 1 inmate's death and injuries to at least 12 others. Additionally, 35 inmates sustained stab or slash wounds during the melee. The riot was one of the most severe in the prison's history and highlighted the deep-seated racial divisions within the facility. Investigations revealed that the violence may have been premeditated, with gang affiliations playing a significant role in the conflict. The discovery of approximately 50 homemade weapons on the yard post-riot underscored the level of preparation involved. In the aftermath, the prison was placed on lockdown, and security measures were heightened across California's correctional facilities to prevent similar outbreaks. The incident prompted scrutiny of Pelican Bay's practices, particularly the policy of housing inmates based on racial classifications. Critics argued that such segregation perpetuated racial tensions and contributed to the cycle of violence. Legal challenges ensued, leading to court rulings that deemed race-based housing assignments unconstitutional. These decisions mandated reforms in inmate housing policies to address systemic issues contributing to racial conflicts within the prison system. The events at Pelican Bay during this period serve as a stark reminder of the complexities involved in managing high-security correctional institutions and the importance of addressing underlying social and systemic factors to maintain safety and order.